Let's get this started. Now welcoming to the stage, Candace Owens.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. So nice to be out here. Have a seat. Have a seat. So great to be in New York. I was actually born in New York. Nobody knows that little factoid, but born in New York. Candace Owens. Makes sense. So much that I want to talk to you guys about tonight, so I'm just going to jump right into this. First and foremost, they were briefing me on the fact that there were a lot of protesters here when Charlie Kirk was here, and which is expected, obviously. We know New York tends to be very left-leaning, and they were concerned that there were some people that would disrupt the room. And I just got to thinking about something that I was talking to a friend about last week when I was in Wyoming. I was fishing and doing a little bit of shooting and a little bit of hunting and some hiking, and obviously I'm 8.5 months pregnant. And yes. So if I'm not crying tonight, nobody will be crying tonight. Save your tears. But he had asked me, you're so active in your pregnancy and you work so much, and it's not something that you usually see. And I had answered back to him that the reason for me is that I find it very strange that, people don't think about a couple of generations ago when it wasn't really an option, when people were pregnant and they were working the fields. And I always reference my grandparents and how hard they always worked when women were giving birth without any medication, just like in their homes, having 9, 10, 11, 12 kids. And now it seems like, everybody in the world has become a little bit more pathetic, right? Everyone's become a little more pathetic. Everyone, left, right, everyone's a little more pathetic. And I was thinking about this documentary that I was asking him to watch. The person that we were fishing with was hosting us. And it is called World War II in Color. Has anybody seen that documentary on Netflix? It's incredible. It is actually incredible. I encourage everybody to go pursue it. Again, it's called World War II in Color. And what was really interesting about this documentary was they went back at all the old footage, obviously, from World War II, and they colorized it, which made a huge difference, being able to see this in color, to be able to see this real footage somehow colorized, and to see their faces and their expressions. And the first thing that I was struck by in the documentary was that as I was watching it, and I promise you, I am not a crier. I never cry. I should probably cry more. I was boo-hoo crying watching this thing. And what was interesting is that I wasn't just crying for the American soldiers. I was also crying, they did it so well that you were crying for the German soldiers, you were crying for the Japanese soldiers, because you suddenly realized how young they all were, right? And seeing their faces, that they were 18. Some of them were lying about their age. They were 17 years old. And when they told the story of the Battle of Midway and this understanding that these 18-year-old Americans had, right? So these people, they were your age, not going to a college campus, but going to war. And they were taking photos, understanding that they were about to get on a plane that didn't have enough fuel to bring them back. So they understood they were dying. They were going to die for their country. And the final conversations that they were having with one another, how much older they looked somehow than the people that I feel like I encounter on college campuses. Like we even look different than we did back then. Really seeing the fear once it was colorized, especially looking at the Japanese soldiers, because they were on suicide missions. They understood that they were going to die. Well, I want you to think about that, especially if you're a young man today. Understanding that when you walk out of a door, or whether you get on to a plane, that you're not coming back. It's incredible to think about the courage that these 18-year-olds had. And then I fast forward and I think about what I do for a living and how strange it is to me that now we are producing students that think that it's an act of bravery, who just can't deal with having to sit in a room and listen to ideas that they disagree with, right? It's an act of bravery to disrupt. It's an act of bravery to protest. It's an act of bravery to throw a chair through a window. It's not. It's pathetic, okay? Disagree with somebody, you sit down, you listen to what they have to say, you stand up, you raise your hand, you ask questions, because if you're an American today and you are breathing, You are a part of a generation of the most privileged human beings that have ever existed on the face of the planet. Thank God for that. And so I will ask this question in earnest. How many people here today came here to listen to me because you actually don't agree with everything that Candace Owens says? Cool. Awesome. I actually think it's really cool that all of you guys are here because it's important to listen to ideas that you disagree with. It's awesome. Give them a round of applause. And also, at the end of this, if you guys sitting in the row have any questions, we want you to come right to the front of the line and ask them. We want to give you an opportunity to talk to us, talk about the things that you disagree with, and hopefully find places where we do agree. Because I am convinced after doing this for 7+ years that there are actually a lot of things that we do agree on, but right now the media doesn't allow for that conversation to take place. It is stunning to me how many people that follow me now on social media tell me how much they used to hate me because they would read articles about what I said and they had never actually heard what I had to say. So to kind of just start and give a spiel in case you are not familiar with what my viewpoints are. Hi, my name is Candace Owens. I never thought that I would have a platform for thinking outside of a box. It doesn't make sense to me still that I have a platform and that I have so many followers because I really just said one simple statement which shouldn't be that shocking, which is that black people don't have to be Democrats. I don't think that that's a requirement. The second thing that I think I said that has upset a lot of people is that as a black person, I am not required to support a movement that garnered $90 million in 1 year and in which none of the money went to the black community. So what I've learned now is that it's independent thought that perturbs individuals. And what's really happened right now in American society is that people with a lot more power than us have created certain boxes that we are expected to live in based on our personal attributes, based on what we look like, right? If you are a black person, you must support this, you must vote this way, and you must think this way. If you are, as one example, a gay person, and this one always shocks me, okay, well, you can't just be gay, you now have to support the BTQRIASTUV alphabets. Why? Why, if I was a gay man and I was married in America, would I have to also support transgenderism on children? It makes no sense. It's a random box that has been created, okay? It makes no sense. And God forbid you are a gay person, you say, actually, you know what, just because I'm a male and I'm in love with another male, I actually don't necessarily believe, you know, that we should be affirming children's gender, then the entire community, your community, will chew you up and swallow you whole. And this is what really the purpose of these boxes are, is to make sure that you conform, that you don't think beyond boundaries that have been assigned for you. And this goes on all over the place, all across America. We see these boxes being created, and people are fearful of stepping outside of them because they get smeared, ridiculous smears. I mean, the first thing that came at me was that I was a black white supremacist. It's entirely no sense. People just couldn't think and go, well, why would Candace want to live in a society, help create a society that she can't live in? Why would I want white supremacy to come back if I can't function within that society? The second thing, which is my favorite, which is said about me, is that, you know, one day I woke up and became a conservative because I wanted to make a ton of money. Sweetheart, if I wanted to make a ton of money, I would have been the most committed black liberal you've ever seen, okay? They were writing Patrisse Cullors checks I have never seen in my life for saying Black Lives Matter on a fist bump. Do you know how much better I would have done it than Patrisse Cullors? I would have been on CNN, MSNBC. I mean, they were eating this stuff up, giving book deals to people for nothing, literally for being black, right? And then when it all came down, nobody wanted to say anything about Patrisse Cullors, and so I made an entire documentary. I did, right? Because she was a fraud, and she always was a fraud, and people couldn't see it at the height of their emotion. And this is the thing that people don't realize, is that your emotions have been hijacked, right? You need to set aside your emotions if you want to make it through society today. They will find out how you feel, and they will manipulate you. I say this, at the moment that you have a feeling, pause and ask yourself, who benefits from that feeling? I will guarantee you it's not you. On college campuses today, it's so crazy because I went to university in 2007, and I, at the time, was left-leaning. I wasn't a Democrat. I've never voted Democrat in my life, despite what the headlines read about me. I was a liberal. I thought more liberally. I think I probably followed the old phrase where they say, if you're not a liberal when you're young, then you don't have a heart, and if you're not a conservative when you die, then you don't have a brain, right? And it's easy. I think liberalism is easy when you're younger because you don't have any real responsibilities, right? It's just a time when you have ideas. And ideally, what they say, give it to the left, it sounds better. Even liberalism sounds better than conservatism. Just sounds a little boring, right? What do you want to be, liberal, or do you want to be conservative? So it's instantly more appealing. And then they take words that once had meaning and they make it sound like it's good, even if it's horrible. They're really good at linguistics, the left, right? You know, they'll say pro-choice. Who doesn't want to be pro-choice? I love choices. I love choices on a menu. I love choices throughout my life. Actually, we're just killing off black babies, 79 million of them to date, right? Whoa, what kind of a choice is this? But they're good at linguistics. So people look past all the things that they're doing. They find little phrases that make you feel good and make you warm and fuzzy, make you think that you're helping people even when you're hurting them. And so, yes, when I was younger and I was your age, I was entrapped by it. Feminism. Oh, this is about equality between the sexes. No, actually, it's about hating men and destroying relationships, productive relationships between men and women. It is. That's what modern feminism has become. And how do you know that that's exactly what it's become? Because there's actually, and you're free to disagree with this, whenever I speak to someone that tells me that they're a feminist, and I say, what is it in society that you can't do, that a man can do? They struggle to answer the question. Oh, because it seems like actually we have achieved equality between the sexes. But then they'll point out, oh, but Candace, there's a disparity. There's a disparity between how much money women are making when they leave college and how much money men are making when they leave college. They'll point to some statistic like that, right? And then I say to them, what are you majoring in versus what the men are majoring in? Oh, he's majoring in engineering and I'm majoring in fashion. Okay, well, he's a neurosurgeon. He wants to go on. Men are naturally have a proclivity towards wanting to do things like engineering, wanting to do things like business, and women tend to focus more on the arts because men and women are not the same. Not the same. Our interests are not the same. And they're never going to be the same. And it's strange to me that people are now trying to combine us, to make us some androgynous species. I don't want to be a man. Can I say that? Is that acceptable? I don't want to be. It seems like a tough gig. It really does. And I don't know what these feminists from yesteryear were fighting for. Because I gotta be honest, this sucks. You're telling me that I can put my butt cheeks on the internet for free, and that's gonna stick it to the man? Free the nipple is an Instagram campaign? Oh yeah, he's gonna be really upset, ladies, when you're naked on the internet. You're telling me that women are being taught to have multiple partners as some act of sexual freedom. Oh yeah, ladies, it's really gonna suck when you tell men, I don't want a relationship, but I'll sleep with you for nothing because modern feminism says that that's good. It sucks. Oh, now I get to work just like a man, hours day in and day out. Dude, we were just cooking. I love cooking. Who fought for feminism, modern feminism? People keep thinking that these are things that women liked. And when you actually look at happiness, women are not happy anymore because we're being told that we still have to be a woman, but also be like a man. It shouldn't be like that. Both of these things are divine, femininity and masculinity, and both of these things currently in society are being perverted. They're being perverted completely. I don't think it is something that women aspire to have multiple partners, even if we pretend and people are telling you that that's what you should aspire to because you can be just like a man. It's not natural. It simply isn't. Women want relationships, even if they don't tell you that. Women want to aspire once you get older. You want to find a person that you know is going to protect you. And that's not to say that women and men are different is not to say that one is needed more other than the other. In fact, I say the toughest job in the entire world is being a stay-at-home mom. For the women that do that, they're heroic. When you examine the things that the left is after, it seems so chaotic. It's chaotic, and it's weird to me because of how quickly it all transpired. It's really weird. Like when I was in college, we just had bathroom signs. I never thought that this would be a fight that the left would take on. Well, what if I'm not a he or a she and I'm an it? I need to know that all people can go into this bathroom. You know, what if I'm a Z, a zer, 26,000 pronouns? It just wasn't like this a short time ago. Things have gotten frantic, and you look up and you say, why? Who was the person that really got this upset about a bathroom sign? That they decided to take this to DC and start marches. What was that? Are we that privileged? Do we need to all go to a third world country? Do we need to all go visit a continent like Africa and understand what it really means to want? Are we bored? Are we suffering from privilege? I think the answer is yes. Do you know how privileged? Go speak to an African, for those of you who have visited the continent like I have, and try to explain to them that Americans are upset about bathroom signs. They will laugh in your face, meaningfully laugh in your face. If you saw my colleague Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman? He did that. He went to an African tribe and he tried to explain to them that he, as a man, was actually a woman on the inside. And they laughed, a roarous, happy, fulfilled laugh in his face, right? Because it was very simple to them to understand these things. You have to be privileged to come up with these. You have to be privileged to come up with these problems, bored out of your mind to care about something that is so stupid in the web of our lives. So you've got this weird platform and you go, what is that about? And then it's confusing because at the same time that they're telling women to act like men, go to work, you can be bad all by yourself. All my single ladies, right? You don't need a man. Men ain't shit, right? That's gotten very popular, that phrase, this whole thing. At the same time that they're telling women that they can do everything by themselves, and women are miserable because of it, they're telling men to act like women, right? Whoa, what are you doing there? Are you being a man? Well, that's toxic masculinity, what you're doing there. That's got a name now. Toxic masculinity, showing signs of aggression. Soon enough, you guys will all be old enough. You'll start your own families. I have a boy, I have a girl, and I have another boy coming. And let me tell you, that toxic masculinity, it starts at about 9 months, as soon as they start walking, okay? My son wakes up every day and he wants to fight me, okay? He wants to literally fight me. He's aggressive. He wants to punch. He wants to kick. You take him out, it's like he just is ready for the Spartan Wars, the Peloponnesian Wars to take place all day. Doesn't stop. His way of showing affection is to come up and punch a leg. Why? I say, Mommy doesn't want to fight you. Go find your daddy, okay? And he goes and he finds his dad, and they fight. They wrestle. They get thrown around. He's just a boy. Okay, there's nothing toxic about it. He's a boy. My girl, oh, my sweet girl, she came along second. She wants to listen to Disney princess songs. She loves it. She sings the songs. She wants to sit down. She's dainty. It's so nice because I can't keep getting punched in the stomach by my 2-year-old son. So right now we're battle between the sexes in our house. Men and women, male and female, we come out differently. Our wants are different. Even the way that we deal with one another, women, right? My husband just thinks it's amazing when I sit down with girls and all we do is talk about the most ridiculous gossip and things. We just say so many words. And if you actually look, girls start speaking before boys. My daughter started speaking at 1. My son started speaking at 2. We speak way more words than men do. It's natural. This is biological. This is how we come together. We talk. We share information. Men don't do that. Men compete. Let's watch the game, right? Competition is so embedded into their character that when men come together, they're not sitting around talking about details of, oh, when is your wife due? What are you going to name your kid? My husband will come back from dinner with one of his guy friends, and he'll be like, oh, they're having a second kid. I'm like, boy or girl? He's like, I didn't ask. I'm like, you weren't interested? You didn't ask any more details? It's shocking. We are just so different. So it's weird that we're trying to pervert it and trying to encourage women to act like men while telling men to act like women. And you look up and you ask yourself, why? What's the purpose of that? What's the purpose of pushing this trans agenda, right? That didn't exist. I didn't graduate with a single trans person from high school. So you have to either believe that really deep down everyone was trans and suffering, which if they were, they would have come out now. I'm still friends with these people on Facebook. Or you understand that ideas can be implanted into your head, into your mind. When things become an option, they pursue these options. Go try to find a trans person in Uganda. Go try to find one, if it's just natural, and it's what people are doing. So what's the purpose of these ideas? Then you think of another one of the leftist religions, as I call them, because these are faiths of sorts. People worship these things. They're crying in the streets. They're willing to smash in windows when somebody's speaking. They're possessed. You think about the climate change stuff, right? There are people that are slashing tires in Europe. They think the planet's going to be over in 10 years. Let me tell you something. They have told us the planet was going to be over in 10 years, just about every 10 years, okay? Go talk to your parents. Go talk to your grandparents. Talk to me. When I was in school, we all had to watch Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth. And when we watched it, we saw the polar bears, and they were drowning, and they said, if you don't do something, kiddos, we watched it in health class, you're all going to be dead in 10 years. They really liked that number 10. Because of global warming. That was it. It was all you heard everywhere. Global warming, global warming, global warming. And then that never happened, and actually the polar bear population has doubled since. So, oopsies. Now they don't say global warming anymore, they say climate change, because before global warming, if you talk to your parents, they said that the world was going to freeze to death, and that was called global cooling. Yeah. So they showed all the kids statistics and explained to them that if they didn't get involved, the world was going to cool and everything was going to freeze over and they were going to be into an ice age. There was also the ozone layer scare. There was, and I think this one's the worst, generation acid rain, that the oceans were going to become so acidic that it was just going to pour acid. You're raising your hand. Were you that generation? Very scary, and glad you survived it. And I'll tell you how she survived it. Because it never happens. It never happens. But in the process of scaring you and telling you that you're going to die in 10 years, making you believe that you can control it, if you just slash a couple of Range Rover tires, the government takes trillions. Trillions. They are taking it, they are taxing you, they are making you believe that you can change the weather like you are Storm from X-Men. All you have to do is commit to this faith, and it never happens. And they never get in trouble for being wrong. I don't know where Al Gore is today. I'd like a word. I'd like a word. Told us Florida was going to be completely under by now, and it's not. Florida is still actually a state. So you wonder, why are they doing that? That's another weird category. What do all of these things have in common, right? They rely so much on the youth to carry these torches. You now have middle schoolers. You see this walking out of school because of climate change. Just leave and start walking out. My mother would have whooped my butt if she had seen me walking out of school talking about climate change. So I've thought about that, and I remember I spoke to a friend of mine, Dennis Prager of Prager University. Wonderful man. And I said to him, what is this? What do all of these things have in common? Modern feminism, transgenderism, climate change. What is it? Like, what is the left after? And he said to me, Candace, it's just chaos. And I took a second and I digested that for years because I was such a student when I was at Prager U of trying to really understand what they get with all of this division, all of these radical ideologies that actually, when you look into them, don't make any sense. Why do this? Why not go back to the 90s? People were so happy in the 90s, guys. Let me tell you. Oh, the 90s. Family Matters was on TV. The Winslows. It was a wonderful, wonderful decade. And then I thought about it, and I realized that Dennis, on that one point, he wasn't right. It's not just chaos. It's not just chaos when we're talking about these topics that they're after. It's not just chaos. It is Machiavellian. It's really evil. It's really evil, and they have thought through it. And the one thing that all of these categories have in common is that what sits at the middle of them is family. Listen to this. All of these things attack the family unit. Now, I don't know if you guys are learning about this in school, because I don't think they would allow you to learn about it in school, but when you study the works of Karl Marx, when you study what Marxism is and what socialism is, of trying to turn America into a socialist country, an ideology that has killed 100 million people in the last 100 years. Speak to a Venezuelan about what socialism is, right? How quickly a country that should be the richest country according to their oil resources, now the average person has lost 30 pounds and they're starving because they voted in socialism. Speak to a Cuban. Cubans don't mess with socialism. You're not finding yourself a Cuban socialist because they know what it did to their country. They were swimming over to Florida, swimming over trying to escape socialism. When you study the ideas of socialism and Karl Marx behind it, the number one thing that he teaches and what the government understands is that you have to collapse the family unit. It must be destroyed. What stands between the government and absolute power is the family unit. And that makes sense to me as a black person a lot because of what has been done to black families since the establishment of welfarism. True statistic. Before LBJ and the Democrats and the Great Society Act, I always think, what happened to black America, you know? When I look at my grandfather's generation, they're all dressed well, the music was rich, talking about family, talking about love. People always tell me, you're not a part of black culture. What black culture do you think you're a part of, right? Because I was raised in a black culture that was meaningful and was family oriented, right? What I see today, the hip hop music I'm listening to today, the gang stuff, that was not black culture. Who convinced you that was black culture? How did we get here? Well, you look back, and LBJ, when he established the Great Society Act, which was welfarism for America, at that time, the single motherhood rate in black America was 23%. And they said, oh my God, it's an epidemic. 23% of black children are growing up without a father in the home. That's an epidemic, they said. Fast forward to today, and the single motherhood rate in the black community is 78%. He understood what he had to do. He went after the black family. Shocking statistic. You can look it up. In the 1950s, when Jim Crow was established in this country, black Americans were outpacing white Americans in terms of economic growth. Why? Because the families were together. Communities were together, right? So LBJ, who was an avowed racist that was in office, you can read about the things that he said about keeping black people, keeping those N-words, hard R, voting Democrat for the next 200 years, right? You can read a book about Lyndon Baines Johnson. He realized that he had to establish something that would keep black Americans married to the government rather than to the fathers of the home, and that was the Great Society Act. That was welfarism. That was turning to black women and saying, if you do not marry the father of your children, we will give you more money. It's an incentive. We've seen these incentives because now, if Black America was the experiment, if that was a local experiment, we are now seeing that globalized within the American community. We saw a little test of this during COVID. People were saying, I'm not going back to work because the government's giving me checks. How quickly, how fast it happened that people did not want to go to work because the government was going to give them something just enough to get through the day. Why should I have to get up and go to work? And so when you revisit those topics of leftist ideas, suddenly it starts to fall into that scope of family, and you say, okay, so what is up with transgenderism? Tell me, who would be able to grow up and have a productive family if they have already fundamentally altered their bodies via surgeries, via hormones? You can't go backwards on that. I think you can just press pause on when you start interrupting puberty, the infertility that naturally comes with that. Seeing all of these videos that are being suppressed of people that have trans regret, that are talking about how they were convinced when they were young, when they were just probably a kid saying stupid stuff, that they were somehow in the wrong body because parents want to virtue signal and show how open and accepting they are. When you try to even further understand this push, because when I say that there is a push to make everybody want to identify as either lesbian, gay, or queer. I don't really even know what the A stands for. I stopped learning after the T because I just the letters being tacked on. What is that about? Well, if you have lesbians that are married, they're going to have to turn to IVF treatments and find a sperm donor. It makes it very difficult to just establish a family. You have gays that are married. It's very difficult to just have a family. It just disrupts the family unit. So they need to demonize natural families. They need to demonize the nuclear family, make it seem like that's something that is perverse. Aspiring just to grow up and to have a relationship, a man and a woman, to have children, that normal function they are trying to abnormalize. Then you take a look at climate change and you say, what does that have to do with family? Well, pay attention to the headlines. Pay attention to what they're telling children. They're telling children that it would be wrong for them to bring children into the world, to grow up and to aspire to start families because it's bad for the planet. That's actually what they're telling kids, that starting families is bad for the planet. In fact, they gave Harry and Meghan an award, an actual award, for agreeing to only have 2 kids. You heard AOC say that she wasn't going to start a family. She didn't know about starting a family because of climate change and how irresponsible it would be. And I could be okay with that. It's all right. I was not going to fight around that one. And so at root of what is going on right now in American society is that while the government is keeping all of us warring about various topics, whether it's race, whether it's sexuality, whether it's climate change, the reason why they're putting us into all of these boxes is because when you keep people that are imprisoned warring with one another, you never look up and see what is actually enslaving you. What is actually enslaving you, what is actually removing power from you. And of course, that answer would be the government itself. Which brings me to slavery. I think it's really interesting, and I wrote about this in my book, to realize that slavery ended, of course, in America, but it was actually modernized and updated if you examine what's going on today, right? So things that were crucial to maintaining slaves on a plantation way back when, right? First and foremost, they had to break apart the families because they were constantly auctioning off slaves. If you read Booker T. Washington's Up From Slavery, in the first chapter, he talks about how he felt nothing when his mother died, how he felt nothing when he was taken away from his sisters. The concept of family was something that they stripped away from slaves entirely, right? You look at another thing in terms of their modernized, updated techniques, and one of the things is that slaves were not allowed to learn how to read. It was a crucial part of maintaining slavery, to maintaining the slave codes. In fact, if you were a white plantation owner and you were caught teaching your slave how to read, you were punished according to slave codes. That's how important that was. And if you want to know why I am screaming when I hear about all the things that are being taught in school, right? LGBTQ agenda, you've got critical race theory, all these things. But then you look at the statistics, and in Baltimore, across 9 schools, they couldn't find a single child that was able to read, to pass a basic reading exam, or a basic writing exam, or a basic mathematical exam. Why are they doing that? You have right now a crisis in our country where black communities are completely illiterate according to state exams, and nobody's talking about it. But these kids will go out and they'll protest and they'll riot and they'll do things like that. Why? Because what the government is trying to do is make people emotional and not rational, right? To make them think that they have power when they have absolutely none. They learned this from American history. They learned that you must not allow people to be well-read, but make them think that they are, right? Make them emotional, make them go fight. And another element, of course, is that if you were on the slave plantation and you somehow broke free and you understood what was going on and you got the courage to run, well, and they caught you, yeah, you know what would happen. They would sever your limbs off. They would hang you to teach the other slaves not to get any ideas. And although it would never be anything that harsh today, Google my name. Google Clarence Thomas's name. Google Thomas Sowell's name. Google any black American's name, Condoleezza Rice, who has ordained to think for themselves. and let me know what hits you back. The things that we are called, the things that are allowed to be said about us. What is it for? Not to hurt my feelings, to serve as a warning to other black people. Don't even get the idea. Don't you even get the idea of thinking conservatively, because this is how we will maim you and we will caricature you. And that's exactly what's happened. In fact, in the black community, the greatest people that have ever, the most accomplished black Americans, rejected from the community. Clarence Thomas, called an Uncle Tom and a coon, a man who actually grew up during Jim Crow. Condoleezza, a woman who grew up during Jim Crow. We hail LeBron James and we reject the people that have accomplished the most in our community. That is by design. Because true success, something that cannot be controlled, an educated mind, right? An educated mind is a free mind, is not something that can ever be deemed aspirational. So I am grateful that I have had the opportunity as someone who sees clearly now, who will never be as great as Thomas Sowell or Clarence Thomas and their accomplishments, but to be able to hit the ground and help people understand what is happening in this country. Because if you think that it is the person next to you that you should be hating, you are not yet awake. If you think that it's the person that's on stage that you should be hating, you are not yet awake. America, everyone knows that the person that I give everything to and I am so grateful for, who impacted my life in more ways than I could ever imagine, was my grandfather, who passed just 2 years ago. And I'm grateful not because he was political. He never voted a day in his life. He abstained from it. But he planted the conservative seeds. You know, he married my grandmother when he was just 17. She was 17. They remained married until her dying day in 2013. My grandfather led his family with faith, right? He put his faith first, his belief in God first, allowing us to learn at the breakfast table, reading Bible stories every single morning, instilling those values in me, values that I rejected for a long time once I got into the world myself when I was your age, but then I came back. My grandfather was born on a sharecropping farm in North Carolina, and never once in my life did I ever hear my grandfather utter a bad word about a white person. I think that's stunning as an example, right? Stunning. My grandfather actually, which I talk about in my book, one of the things that always sticks with me the most is that I was desperate to have these conversations with him as I saw his memory was going about 7 years ago. And I would just ask him to just tell me everything from his childhood. I would record what he was saying, and I just wanted to know everything about him. And I'll never forget, I was going to say, Grandad, tell me about the Ku Klux Klan. Because I knew that the Ku Klux Klan had been after him and his brothers. He was one of 12, speaking of women giving birth in a one-room shack. My grandfather was one of 12. And I'll never forget the look in his eye. I promise you, it looked like he was proud. Like he was happy I had asked him the question, and he said to me, yeah, when they would spray bullets inside our home, us kids would run to the back, and my daddy would grab the shotgun and shoot back at them boys, right? Pride, proud, not fearful. A topic that has been given so much power. This is what is just so impressed. So much power. You talk about the Klansmen, the Ku Klux Klan, reduced to boys when my grandfather would talk about them, because the man in that household was his father. The strength of black Americans, all Americans, just a couple of generations ago, going back to that Netflix doc, right? And to see what we've become, all of us, left and right. There's a shame that we should feel in that. We should want to correct course. We should want to lead strong families. We should want to stop allowing people to manipulate us to become so fearful regarding ideas. Because I promise you, even if you disagree with them, you can hear them. You all survived. Again, a round of applause to everyone who stayed in this room and disagreed with me. When my grandfather retired, he moved back down to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and he purchased the sharecropping farm that he grew up on. And that, my friends, is the American dream. The American dream. America is united based on a philosophy. The philosophy is that if you work hard, like my grandfather did, if you stay out of trouble like my grandfather did, if you don't fall for foolishness like my grandfather never did, that you can make something of yourself, that this country will reward you. It is the greatest country. The philosophy of Americanism is the greatest philosophy and the greatest experiment that I believe has ever existed. And so I want to thank you guys so much for having me, and we will begin taking questions. I think line up here. And if you disagree with me, please come to the front, because I want to be able to have a discussion with you. You guys, thank you so much for having me. So that group that disagreed with me, just make sure that they'll be able to answer their questions. They're all right there, but okay, great. All right, guys, I'm just going to say this because the line is long. Let's try to keep the questions short so we can get to as many people's questions as possible. All right, let's get started.
So my question isn't specifically about anything you really said tonight, although I don't really agree with anything you said.
Okay.
I'm proudly part of the LGBTQ community. I've always stood up for my community whenever I needed to. I want to focus specifically on, I've been listening to you for a little bit just to understand some things. A live stream you did about Pride Month in June on Facebook because you were no longer allowed on YouTube. The event that you were talking about, I actually had the honor of attending that event with a lot of my really close friends, and I found it very perplexing to me how you choose to only focus on the things that are negative when it comes to the queer community.
Sorry, when it comes to what community?
The queer community.
Okay.
Do you not realize that people like you and people like the people you're around and that, continue to have this idea of us are the reason we feel that we have to be so openly proud of who we are? Your demented homophobic and transphobic rhetoric and rants just further prove our point that we have to fight loudly to be respected. The reason that LGBTQIA plus suicide rates are so high in this country isn't just because we're part of the community. It's because there are people like you who make us feel like we don't belong. The only LGBTQ agenda we have is
okay. Is there a question in there or a speech?
Yes.
You got to ask a question, buddy. I know you wrote this out in your notes, but ask a question. Let's go.
How do you think other people who, with your beliefs, respond to the fact that your hateful and harmful rhetoric costs the lives of queer children every single day, on average, every 45 seconds?
Okay, so this is just going to be a pure boogeyman. You're pretending that someone committed suicide because of Candace Owens. You've got no facts here. You're just going, it's your rhetoric that's causing all of this. And when in reality, you want to talk about the tea. I sat down with a man named Walt Heyer who was convinced to chop his penis off after your community told him that there was something wrong with him because he had confusion. Why was he trans? Because he was molested when he was 4 years old by his uncle. Rather than being sat down and spoken to by a psychologist, he was handed hormone pills, and he eventually chopped off his penis. Walt Heyer is now 80 years old. He detransitioned. He does a lot of work talking about why it is that he runs a charity, okay, an actual charity that is dedicated to sex change regret, of people who have changed their parts and can't go back. And you know what happens? Suicide rates go up after they transition. After they transition. And Candace Owens wasn't the one that chopped their dicks off. Great. Next question. I mean, really, let's calm down. I just want to say, I am not the doctor who chopped off these people's penises. I am not the person that caused them to have that depression after they go through these transitions and can't just magically go back. So as I said, that is it's just creating an absolute straw man. Your rhetoric has done this. You have no idea what's going on in those individuals' lives and how they are being inspired to ruin their own lives. And so on my platform, I do host people that have sex change regret, and I speak to those individuals because the community needs to hear those stories before they make those same decisions and can't turn around. Plain and simple. Hello.
Hi.
Guys, I want to hear her. Go ahead. What do I have to say? Just the question, please. No speech. What is the question?
What do you have to say to the trans students on this campus who feel actively victimized by your presence here?
Life's tough. Get a helmet, man. I'm too pregnant for this. Next question. My goodness. Seriously, somebody just give out free hugs or something somebody give out free hugs. I can't be your mommy, okay? I'm too pregnant. I can't be your mommy. Next up.
As a non-binary person, what do you have to tell me about my identity? Because I know for a fact I'm not confused.
Okay, next question. Great statement. That's a statement. That's a statement. Okay, you know your identity. You're not confused. Congratulations, sweetheart. Thank you very much for your statement. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I was wondering where you got your statement, your statistic about people who transition, detransition, as well as that you are infertile after transitioning. Because I myself take hormones. I do testosterone injections, and I've gone through a lot of doctors, and none of them told me that was true.
Okay, so on my podcast, I actually cite all the sources. If you look up my name and my podcast, you can, it's in so many articles, and also, as I said, sexchangeregret.org actually lists all of these statistics with their sources. So obviously, I can't give you a hyperlink as I'm standing on the stage, but you can definitely find it on my podcast, and you can find it on sexchangeregret.com. Thank you for the question. That was, I think, the first question we got there. Hi.
According to Britannica, the definition of the nuclear family has expanded with the advert of same-sex marriage. Children in nuclear families may be couples' biological or adopted offspring. Does this mean that the merch you sell supporting, nuclear families means that you support trans couples adopting, gay couples adopting, and spreading this rhetoric that you talk about?
So you're talking about the expansion of definition. So right now they've expanded the definition of woman to include biological males. This gets back into what I was saying earlier about the left's controlling linguistics and just pretending that, okay, a nuclear family can now be two trans parents that are adopting a child. That is not the nuclear family unit that I am talking about. I believe that I am talking about marriage between a male and a female, which naturally and biologically produces children. So no, I do not take that new updated definition of what it means to be a woman or what it means to be a nuclear family. Thank you for your question, though.
Hi, I raised my hand before, so I just want to preface that I have opposite views, but I do want to have a genuine conversation without feeling belittled, so I do just want to preface that.
Yeah.
I am a feminist. I do study specifically academia and the structure of academia and what that looks like for people of color. So in relation to free speech, do you feel that free speech is free for everybody in terms of Western society and the America that we live in today, and at what point does free speech no longer become free?
What do you mean, at what point does it become no longer become free?
Some rhetoric can be harmful to other communities, especially in the way that it's spread in the media, and I think that goes for both sides. But
can you give me an example? It's always easier to answer a question.
So what I know, we all are aware of what happened on campus last year.
I'm not.
Okay, great. Look it up. So it was just involving the feeling of LGBTQ members of the community feeling unsafe with rhetoric that's being shared in terms of transphobia.
If you're a man, I need an example, and someone, if you're a biological man and someone says, hey, what's up, dude?
More of there's students on campus that are living in communities where they don't feel safe because of rhetoric of explaining that transphobia isn't accepted. So my question is just how do you think free speech impacts everybody in communities?
Yeah, the idea that if somebody looks at a man and calls them a man, that they're suddenly unsafe because they've created a false reality in their own head. I don't abide by that. I think this is what's really happening is that we are celebrating mental disorders in America right now. I had a stalker, a very serious stalker at FBI, ended up getting involved, who had suffered from schizophrenia. He very much believed, and it was a terrifying thing to go through. He escaped the Psych 5150 hold, and he very much believed that he and I were in a relationship, and he would send me about 100 emails a day, okay? In the world of what you believe in your own head now needs to be accepted as reality, I would have had to marry him and raise my children with him, okay? But what was going on in his head wasn't actually reality. And me saying that this person needs to stay away from me and my family because there's something wrong with him and he was threatening to kill me if I didn't, raise my child with him, that was reality. That was something that had to be dealt with. So what's happened right now is the left is trying to make it seem that people who see reality for what it is are demented and are creating unsafe territory, and that's not the truth. In fact, what I think is unsafe territory is for people to be affirmed in their delusions. So I will never refer to a biological male as a female. And if that makes somebody feel unsafe, you know, I'm not following you around. I don't know what happened on your campus. I wouldn't follow you around and say, hey, you're a male. Totally fine. Go live your life as you want to live your life. But when you say that the way that you live your life now has to impact me and I have to pretend that I see a woman when clearly you are a man, I shouldn't have to play that game. That's all. Thank you very much. Hi.
Hello. My question is a little bit of a different speed. Earlier today you mentioned Patricia Cullors or somebody from the BLM movement, and you said that her only qualifying factors for speaking about different things and issues was because she was black. And during the White House hearing about white supremacy, you was on that, and a question was asked whether white supremacy is a threat or not. And your only qualification to speaking on that was being black. So what do you say to people that say you're being a hypocrite?
Yeah, so I didn't say on this stage that Patricia's only qualification was being black. I said that people gave her tens of millions of dollars, had no idea where it was going to go, and were happy to do it because she was pirating. She just kept saying Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. It was stupid. They lost their money, bad investment. Oh well, too bad, so sad. Regarding qualifications to speak on what's harming Black America, you just have to be able to examine actual statistics, right? Are you telling me, would you honestly say that when you walked into this room today, you were afraid that white supremacy was going to kill you? I asked this to Black people, to be honest. Are you afraid that a Klansman is going to come down the street on horseback and pick you up? Be honest.
I'm personally not afraid.
Okay, so that's it. So when I was speaking at the congressional testimony, I was saying, my experience being black in America, I don't know any black people that are fearful to walk down the street because they think a Klansman's going to come get them, right? But I can list you tons of black people that grow up in poverty, that grow up in the hood, that grow up around gang culture, that are fearful. When you examine black on black crime rates, when I was just talking about illiteracy rates, I said that I could list 100 things the black community is suffering from today before I got to white supremacy, and yet the focus and the emphasis in the school system has been to brainwash us to believe that white people want to kill us around every single corner, and I think that that's a harmful ideology because it doesn't allow us to actually focus on the things that we're suffering from. You know, number one, I would say is father absence. We need to get our families back together. We have to stop letting the government raise us.
I do believe, I agree with some of the things you just said, but at the end of your point, you just mentioned a father absence and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And studies are actually shows that black men who are actually in their home participate with their children more than any other race.
Yeah.
So
great.
So what you just said is a fallacy then?
No. I'm talking about when there's not a black father in the home, right? So every natural ill follows in the black community. So when you separate the black family, if you look at statistics between black families that are together and white families that are together, the poverty rate, I mean, they're both doing well. It's a 2-point difference between white and black families. When you remove and you break down the black family, it's unbelievable, right? It's a pathway to prison. It's a pathway to illiteracy. So I'm only talking about broken down black families. I'm not saying when the black family unit is together. That brings us back to the Winslows, Family Matters, and the greatest show that was ever on television. I do want to get to more people. Thank you so much for your question. Hey, how are you?
All right, how are you doing? Good evening. I have an article pulled up on my phone from May 27, 2023, and its title reads, Charlie Kirk's TPUSA teamed up with a registered sex offender. And if you just allow me 1 second,
okay.
The TPUSA second annual Pastor Summit was partially funded by a known convicted pedophile, Sean Bergstrom. So would you feel comfortable of your children joining an organization in part funded by a convicted pedophile?
Okay, so first and foremost, I have no idea what you're talking about. You have the benefit of reading an article I've never heard of. I couldn't talk about that. Obviously, that's post when I used to work at Turning Point USA, so that's a better question that's being directed to their staff. I don't know how it happened. I don't know if it was a mistake. I don't know if what you're reading is fake news. What I will say is, to answer your question, would I ever want my child exposed to a pedophile or anything that was pedophile friendly?
Organization in part funded by a pedophile.
Yeah. I would guess, since you can be any person, and again, that could log on to the internet right now, and donate 30.
Rolling Stone a part of the fake news or what?
Is what?
Rolling Stone? You ever heard of it?
Yes, Rolling Stones. Yes, Us Magazine and Rolling Stone are not a great source for media. I mean, yeah. Rolling Stone? Are you kidding me? Come on, man.
Okay, please.
I was trying to answer your question. You then cut me off. What I was going to
go
say
ahead.
to you is that what ends up happening when these people do hit pieces is like right now, if you want to go donate to, I don't know, any presidential campaign, Vivek Ramaswamy, JFK, whoever you want to donate to, you can be a small pocket donor. You can give $20, and obviously there's going to be no background check done on you. Again, I have no idea what you're talking about. I just want to be clear.
Sponsor though, so if you want to address that, if you feel
I can't address that because I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't work for Turning Point USA.
Right.
So your question is better.
But you're on a stage right now behind the screen.
Speaking
Okay.
on issues that I care about, free market capitalism.
So do you stand against pedophilia or do you not?
I stand against pedophilia. I will say that 20,000 times.
Why are you speaking for an organization in part funded by
I'm
a
literally
pedophile?
saying I cannot speak on that because I have no idea what you're talking. Are you
bet you
going to
can.
keep asking me
No,
to pretend
please.
that I know what you
I'd
found
love
in
an
Rolling
answer.
Stone? If I
'Cause this is a
bring up a
non-answer.
random
But
article.
I'd love an answer. Go ahead.
I have answered you 12 times. I will never support pedophilia ever in any capacity
So do you
whatsoever.
announce the funding to TPUSA?
If you're telling me TPUSA is being funded by pedophiles, all right, because you found it on Rolling Stone, okay? Of course, if that is the truth, which I have a feeling it's not, then I would openly denounce the funding of anything by a group of pedophiles, which is why I don't support. Okay, next.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming.
Okay, let's just give it a second so I can hear you. Guys, I just want to say this. If you're spending tens of thousands of dollars to attend this university to be led to believe that Rolling Stone is a good source of information, you need to get a refund ASAP.
First of all,
Hi.
First of all, thank you for coming to the campus.
Thank
Second
you.
of all, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to your faith. As a Christian myself, I know you're a Christian. I saw the video you put up about the Christian debate with your husband and Ali B. Stuckey. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your faith and how that's kind of inspired you.
Yeah, so, well, you know then that I am sort of in between a rock and a hard place right now. I am Protestant. My husband is Catholic. I'm looking more at the Catholic faith for a lot of different reasons. First and foremost, because I do believe that males lead the household, and so my children are being raised Catholic right now. And so currently at our house, we go to 2 different churches, which is not ideal, but for holidays, we go to the Catholic Church. I was raised by my grandfather. He was by the book, when I say in terms of the Bible. The reason why he was never invested in secularism of any sort is because he thought that all of it was the devil. He was like that devout of a Christian. He didn't celebrate any holidays, and really kept to really just his faith and his family. And so I always say that I was very immersed in scripture when I was a child, and then I very much resented it once I got into school because it wasn't cool to be a person that read the Bible. It still isn't cool to be a person that has faith, especially if you're on a college campus. It's something that is looked down upon. And it's actually one of the pillars of leftism that I wish I had talked about tonight is atheism, which was also crucial to Marxist beliefs. You were not allowed to have faith if you lived in a socialist or a communist society because they wanted the government to become your God. They wanted you to believe in nothing else but the government. And you're seeing that take place today as atheism is being encouraged. And so as I began diving into politics and really seeing things that I believe are demonic, Satan is the author of lies and deception. I can think of no more cruel deception than to tell a boy that they're a girl, right, and to encourage them to mutilate their own bodies. So much of what I see today is satanic, and in essence, and it drew me back to my faith very quickly about 8 years ago, and just in helping to make sense of what's going on. The Bible is that resource. You are never going to learn more than when you read the Bible, when you really throw yourself into that. And so even though right now I'm in between and learning more about the Catholic faith, there is no question that everything that I have, everything that I am is thanks to God putting me on this journey. Thank you so much.
pleasure to meet you. I've been wanting this for a while. So my name is Joshua. I am from Brentwood, New York. You guys should Google Joshua Chan, Brentwood, New York. Great person. I'm great. Anyway, so it's about health. I want to switch to healthcare. My favorite topic in the world. I love
What's
health.
that?
Healthcare.
Healthcare.
Okay.
Great.
Ms. Owens, I'd like to
Disaster.
begin by underscoring the importance of healthcare as a fundamental right. Many Americans, including working class white, black, Hispanic conservatives, believe that everyone should have access to quality healthcare without financial barriers. Additionally, as conservatives also prioritize fiscal responsibility, it's worth noting that the United States spends more money on healthcare than any developed nation, yet lags behind in health outcomes. It's a situation where it seems like we're paying too much and not getting enough in return. And this is the question now. Conservative healthcare policies have often emphasized individual choice and market-based solutions. However, it's been observed that private health insurance companies often prioritize profit margins over patient care and can lead to administrative efficiencies. In contrast, universal healthcare systems, as seen in many developed countries, not only ensure that healthcare is a human right for all, but also achieve a greater cost-effectiveness and efficiency. From a moral and fiscal standpoint, it's a compelling argument to eliminate the middleman, reduce administrative costs, and negotiate lower drug prices to make healthcare more accessible and affordable for all Americans. Lastly, no one in this room likes their health insurance company. No one. Essentially, especially when the health insurance companies deny care. People like their doctor.
Okay, I get it.
Last question. Sorry.
So,
how can conservative healthcare policies align with these moral principles of equity and compassion and ensure that everyone can access healthcare without financial hardship?
Okay. We're gonna do two more questions after this, maybe. Okay, that's a long one. Two more, guys. I'm sorry, we're not gonna be able to get to all of you. So, first and foremost, the healthcare system is an absolute disaster. I have an entire episode where I sat down with someone and discussed this. People wrongly believe that what's currently happening is our healthcare in America is an example of capitalism in the free market. It absolutely is not. It is the exact opposite. The fact that you walk in to a clinic, you don't know what anything costs. You're essentially blindfolded. You go to the hospital and then you get a magical bill and they say, oh, that Tylenol that you had, we didn't tell you it cost $400 for one tablet, is just completely wrong. America is not an example of free markets and being able to actually choose. So that is the first problem, is that the bureaucracies, everything behind it just needs to completely die. If we actually had a free market solution to healthcare, and it's interesting because I'm married to someone that's from the UK, where yes, they do have government-sponsored healthcare via the NHS, but it's a disaster, and they're all able to pay privately, and they're able to compete and give people the lower price. It's phenomenal. So an example of that Charlie Kirk always gives is LASIK surgery. Back when LASIK surgery was being covered by insurance, it was astronomical, the price to get your eyes fixed. And then insurance said, we'll no longer cover it. We consider it to be cosmetic. And now you can get your eyes fixed with LASIK for like $3,000. So it went from being $25,000 per eye to $3,000 because they allowed competition. So when health insurance companies were actually removed from the equation, it then became a free market environment, and doctors were going, okay, I'll compete, and here's how much I'm willing to do it for. So all of that needs to be disrupted so that doctors can actually compete for our dollars. And I think the health insurance companies are an absolute scam, and I hope that it collapses in the near future.
What might be like 3 really specific policies or things that you would want to see if there's a new Republican president?
The absolute abolition of the Department of Education. It has been an absolute disaster. Defund the Department of Education. And of course, a president is not a dictator, so assuming we have the House and the Senate and the presidency is kind of what I'm talking about. But yeah, that is the first thing I think that needs to be changed, is that so much of what we're suffering from is true ignorance, emotion, and very little facts behind the emotion. And if we can get people performing at the academic level of all of these other nations, it wouldn't be the circumstance. I would also like to see a complete abolition, and this kills people, of welfareism. I think that these welfare policies, people relying on the government, it's a new form of slavery. That would be something that I would focus on. And, beyond that, Hungary is a great example right now of what happens when you put in place pro-family policies. You really study what Viktor Orban is doing in Hungary. It's absolutely incredible. They're like the odd man inside of the EU. Pro-family policies would be something as well. I am not interested in a Republican presidency that's just going to be focused on revenge. I think we actually need to have a vision about what we're trying to correct in America. So a couple of things, maybe not in a particular order, but that I would like to see. Thank you for your question, though. Again, a special thank you to everyone who disagrees with me and stayed. Thank you to Turning Point USA for always having me. We made it through with minimal disruptions. I love all of you. Next time you see me, hopefully this baby will be out of here.